So let's go ahead and talk about money moves. All right. So ultimately, well, people want to go ahead and pry and, money, 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 money. You know what the funny thing is? There have been plenty of rumors about me throughout the years, Uh, drug addicted, homosexual, some of the references, small dick, no drive, no ambition. We've heard all the demeaning stuff. And you know what the funny thing is? When it comes down to the assumptions of breadwinners and everything like that, when the people that are the adults in the room that, want to make executive decisions on how to use money, all right? Understand, one thing that doesn't change is the root of where that money came from, how that money grew to mature, and the factor that societally the adults in the room will feel pretty fucking embarrassed about, transparency is given about. And that's the factor that even wanting to act like, because you got age, that means that experience automatically translates into, making the smart and right moves, while not wanting to have to admit to anybody, including everybody else in the family, the factor that the reason that everybody isn't on their ass and fucking homeless right now is because of the factor that I took majority of the money that I went to go work for when I was younger, and I invested and started in a mutual fund before I was even fucking 18 years old. Alright? So ultimately, investing into that mutual fund at 15 years old. Now go ahead. Keep in mind, how old am I now? I'm about to be 35. So now go ahead and take everything that I invested in that mutual fund, because remember too, they have a fiduciary duty, and ultimately have to give full transparency. Alright? So, invested in a mutual fund as a teenager with money from a settlement. Alright? Did not touch it. Don't get me wrong. Ultimately, obviously, it's going to accrue interest. Alright? So, basically survived off a portion of the interest for a long fucking time, while simultaneously using some of the proceeds from that mutual fund to go ahead and cover whatever legal fees would end up costing, going ahead and trying to get the representation needed to make sure that if any biologically or non-biological, family members, extended family, were to go ahead and try to defraud and pick me clean, that it would be established. Do not let me stand in the way of them getting prosecuted, especially because being the one getting defrauded, ultimately wanted to go ahead and protect future me from past me's people-pleasing tendencies, So that's a pretty good safeguard from being an easy target or an easy mark. Alright? But now go ahead and calculate that mutual fund getting started at 15 years old. Alright? Started it with a couple of grand. When I say a couple of grand, I'm not clarifying what the couple of grand initially is. But what I'm going to go ahead and clarify is adjust for the annual percentage yield, as well as go ahead and adjust for cost of living, as well as inflation, and go ahead and try doing the calculations of what ends up happening when, because of starting a mutual fund that grows at an expedited, higher interest yield, because of the factor of the restrictions and limitations that comes along with starting a mutual fund. Go ahead and calculate. Mutual fund started around 15, 16, and has gotten now 20 years to mature. Well, all financial responsibilities and obligations as far as legalities taken care of. Alright? So, how many people do you know that are so financially literate that they literally rose the entirety of their lineage above the tax bracket that they were in before by going ahead and making one smart move as a teenager, while simultaneously people keep forgetting who the hand was that fed them in the first place. And it's starting to get really fucking old. And I'm really starting to feel like a fucking broken record because I didn't want to have to acknowledge that factor, be open about that factor, and embarrass the fucking elders of my clan, the ones that are supposed to, be respected. Because ultimately, it took a younger one from your fucking clan to raise the entirety of our family above the fucking poverty line. Alright? So, if we're sharing in Rejoice success, then you need to acknowledge that the root of your found success is by going ahead and, you trying to have plausible deniability when it comes to attempting to crack open my mutual fund that I started as a teenager and that I have, while keep being told about how I need to learn about patience, I'm still having a hard time understanding how I need to learn about patience while simultaneously have been sitting back for almost 20 years, letting the majority of the settlement money go ahead and continue to accrue interest, right? So what I had been living off of was just a portion of the interest, all right? A portion of the sum equated from the whole. Alright? And the whole exists because at the center, the epicenter of that circumstance, was me as a teenager getting bullied, learning about financial literacy, going and being driven about, I'm going to have the financial freedom, being motivated and everything, while understanding that it started with that first move and making that first move at 15. Alright? While simultaneously having the patience to wait for it to grow and mature for now what's coming up to the 20-year anniversary. Alright? Obviously, as long as nobody has been skimming off the top, which obviously the orders of if somebody's been skimming off the top while trying to, defraud me, to go ahead and follow through a prosecution. But at the same time, I was also trying to spare the public humiliation of having to be open about that factor. So that way, if you end up going and being like, hey, when it comes to financial success and moving up in the world, how did you do it? I didn't want y'all to have to go and be embarrassed and be like, well, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for our fucking runt of the litter, basically, going ahead and being smart enough to start a mutual fund at 15, we'd all be going ahead and basically selling our asses like whores and taking whatever payments that we could end up getting when somebody ends up going ahead and offering us money to participate in bum fights. So, that inevitability would have ended up sucking. But, yeah, hi, the person who prevented that potential inevitability, while simultaneously getting shit on every step of the way.